Awesome. Well, we're really excited to be here, and we want to thank Shelly for coming. This is Shelly Covert. And I just wanted to give you a little sense of where we are. We're in the foothills of the Sierra Nevadas, and we're about 90 minutes drive from Lake Tahoe and from Sacramento. And it's our backdrop here is the beautiful Yuba River, which in the Nisenan language would be the Uba Sao. And we're just really thrilled to have Shelly here to talk about the native connection to this landscape. And the people who used to live here and still live here today are the Nisenan. And Shelly is their tribal spokesperson. So we're going to ask her some questions. But first, I just wanted to read our land acknowledgement. And California State Parks acknowledges the Nisenan people were here in this state park since time immemorial. The Nisenan people are still here today, though they are nearly invisible. The Sierra District of California State Parks includes their story in our interpretation and education here at the South Yuba River State Park. We understand that we are on Nisenan land and that the original tribal families have yet to recover from the near genocide of their people during the California Gold Rush. California State Park supports the Nevada City Rancheria tribe in efforts to stabilize their people, as well as the campaign to restore tribal sovereignty through federal recognition. Yeah. So Shelly, thank you for coming first. It's a beautiful day. It's a little cloudy, but we're hoping for some rain.
Oh, I love it.
I know, it's just beautiful.
It's just right for me. I love it.
So, but first, do you want to do a little introduction of who are the Nisenan in your words?
Our creation stories say that we came out of our sacred mountain, Estemianim, which is what we know today as the Marysville Buttes. Like that's our source of where everything comes from and where we go when we die also. And then we go off to the Milky Way. So, we've always been here. There aren't a whole lot of Nisenan left compared to how many used to be here, of course. But we are still here. And, it's really incredible. I mean, that I'm here, that my daughter's here, that there's any culture left to share. And it still remains. And I really think, I could say most of it comes from the land itself, and that memory and that engagement. The land and the people are supposed to be like this, this tight together. Because what do we do without our planet?
Yeah,
we wouldn't do much, I suppose.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely. And so we mentioned Estemianim, which is down to our southwest where we are here. But where was the Nisenan territory pre-contact, and like who bordered it? Because there are other tribal nations that
Sure. Yeah, and then the tribal boundaries are very, very serious. But they really cultivated the relationships when they could for trade. So being friendly was a great thing, and trying to get along as best you can with the people beside you, so that you could trade and have a variety of things in your community. But the Nisenan, we'd been called Maidu for so long. And there are actually 4 tribes in that Maidu label. But the Nisenan territory is quite large. It goes all the way down below Sacramento to the Consumnes River, follows the Sacramento River on both banks. We have our Washoe to the
over this
east.
direction, towards Lake Tahoe.
I don't know my directions at all. I'm so
See that
terrible. The Washoe folks to the east, and then below us are the Miwok. And the Concow on our
northwest.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Whatever way is that way. Then the Concow folks, and then our family personally, we're interrelated with the Concow people. So a lot of my cousins have that Concow Nisenan blood. I'm more Nisenan Miwok because my grandpa married down the hill instead of over the hill.
Very interesting.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And how many people do you think lived here? I know that estimates vary, but pre-contact, we've had the land can support a large group of people.
Yes.
And how many do you think were there originally?
The academics always argue about it. I tend to go with the higher numbers. They say in the state of California, conservatively speaking, 300,000 Native people. Here in our territory, we were saying like 7,000 to 9,000. But as I do the research and I see the actual written numbers of some of the early people who are out there, I think it's a lot higher than that. I'm thinking more like 11,000 to 13,000 just within the Nisenan territory. So.
Yeah. Well, and we've got some really interesting things behind our camera here, where unfortunately you can't see it, but above us is a beautiful oak tree, which would have provided acorns. And then we have, of course, the river, which before it was dammed due to hydraulic mining, it used to have salmon and steelhead as well as green sturgeon.
Right.
So it would have been a very lively space and able to support lots of families.
Yeah, they said that the salmon would come up so thick that you could walk across their backs, across the waterways. There were so many.
Yeah, and I don't remember, but what's the native word for salmon?
My.
Very cool.
Right?
Yeah, I love learning new words. That's really fun. And what do you think is really the most important thing for the visitors and people who are on our webinar? Thank you for joining in. To know about the Nisenan. I know, a big weighty question.
Yeah, and it's so funny because it changes all the time. Like one day I'll think, oh, it's got to be this, and then another day it's something else. But it keeps coming back to our land here and the relationship with the land, with the trees, with the animals. That really, without this land, who are people? It's sort of like, I would assume it's sort of like the flea on the dog. Like you don't have, it's a terrible analogy probably, but my mom is always saying everything, every little tiny bug, it has to have water, it has to have air. And you can see on Google the pictures of those tiny ants with just one drop of water, or a tiny little bug just getting its sip of water off of one dew on a flower or something like that. And really, all of this provides stability for us. And if we don't have our stores, if we don't have our cars and our roads, all we really have is each other and this place. And Nisenan actually means from among us. And this territory with those boundaries, it wasn't a huge place compared to some of the other, like the Plains tribes who have just thousands and thousands and thousands of acres of land. This is a pretty small place, but they utilized every single, like we've got our natural grapes over here. And their food and their lashings for, you don't just go to the store and buy some tape or whatever. Like they would boil salmon heads for glue and then use the grapevines for the lashing for their houses and things. But everything is provided. And I know we're different now, but just remembering that connection. And, one of the other things is like with the water, when you connect with the water or the trees, like they're there for you and they're wise. And the water is like, you can get in the water and it takes your worries and cares down the river with it. And, we're so far from those things. So it sounds like I don't know, like I'm being cliche or, just saying things that are so far from reality today sometimes. But if I know if any of you have gone and sat under an old tree or you interact with the animals out in nature, that you've felt that. Yeah. And it's there that those relationships can be cultivated. Yeah.
Well, and I feel like a lot of us in this last year, and so we spent a lot of time inside and really felt that need to be out there in some green space. And I know that state parks is a really big and beautiful green space that is across the state, and all these state parks are in native landscapes. But I'd love to hear from you if you want to pop into the chat and let us know, what state parks you visit or where you're near. That would be great because we'd love to see where you're coming in from across the state.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's so funny. I think back because I'm so old now, and working is so important. But when I was young, just to sit with the water, that really does something for us. I think it just grounds us, chills us out. And, I spent a lot of time on the computer and there's just nothing like,
it's refreshing.
It refreshes you and it grounds us, and it's a connection, right? Look at the little squirrels. Oh my gosh.
They're harvesting the native grapes over there.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about how this land is important to the Nisenan, but can you talk a little bit more about the emotional connection that the tribe had to the space and still has?
Going off of everything I just said, I think once you spend enough time with nature, you will get to know a tree or the animals that live nearby, rocks, everything. I think you gain this personal relationship. Like if you spend enough time, you'll learn, and you'll probably feel for yourself, and you won't need me to tell you this, but like this tree has a personality. It's slow, it's understated, but if you believe, that this planet is living and it's growing and it's doing all of its things, whether we're here or not, but they have personalities. And if you get to know the landscape in that way, when you go away from home and you get home, that homesick feeling, it's because this landscape really is supposed to be like our family. And I know that when hard times were here after the gold rush, our family did not leave, because our ancestors are buried here for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And we couldn't turn our back on the trees that remained in this place. And so I think that's, everything just keeps coming back to the land and a personal relationship with the land. And that's really what it was all about. And there's a great bounty here. There's so much food. I mean, there's just all kinds of stuff to sustain, that sustain the Nisenan life very nicely. And they were very wealthy because of that. So, but it's all about, I really see this place as a family member, and the Native people a lot of times say Mother Earth for a reason. It's like your mom.
Yeah. You want to take care of it and respect the landscape.
So it'll take care of you,
exactly.
Right? Yeah.
So what can the visitors to this specific park do to respect this landscape? I mean, we talked about, taking time and really immersing ourselves in nature, and understanding that each of these plants is here for a reason. But is there anything else that the visitors can do or we can do to respect that?
It's beginning to be more and more hard for me. It's hard with private property lines, and nature's over there and then this is over here, and it's supposed to be this this whole landscape where we're supposed to be able to move around and take in all that nature has to offer. And I mean, that's why the state parks end up being so critically important, is because there are large chunks set aside that are going to be protected. I think it's understanding that there used to be an incredible relationship that was give and take between humans and the planet. And so if you were to come here with us, I would hope that you could sit and really listen to the water and try to get to know that water for who it is. It's not just a thing, like the trees.
Not just a resource.
It's not just a resource. Everything is so constrained and used and put upon all the time in our society. And I think just getting to know the trees here, or wherever you are, what kind of soil is there? What kind of animals are there? What kind of water is there? Where does it come from and where is it going? Like it's doing its thing. It's on a journey. Like we don't even know because we don't know.
Yeah.
It's like, well, where are you going? What are you doing?
And the river that's behind us stretches for 49 miles from the peak of the Sierras, near Donner Summit, down to just about a mile from us, where it's been dammed due to hydraulic mining. And that was an aftermath of the gold rush. And unfortunately, because it's dammed, we don't see native populations of fish specifically in this river. And in fact, the fish, the salmon, which were coming down upstream to spawn, would die and replenish the river itself. So there is like a really cascading impact on the decisions that were made in the past and what we can do about it in the future and in the present right now.
Sure. Well, and to know that, like the ocean between here and the Sacred Mountain, the water would come up and it looked like an island out there.
Yeah.
And, because we don't see that. We don't see an inner ocean in the Sacramento Valley anymore. I mean, that's why the land is so fertile, because of the fish coming up and all the, we all become fertilizer, I suppose, at some point in time. And, we're making the soil better or whatever, but that has all been stopped for so long. I think not to be a downer, but like, when is it overused?
Exactly.
And are you going to break down all the levees and let the ocean come back in for a decade or two and then, close it up again, or
the waterfront property? But we used to have a much larger river. I mean, we're just talking a little bit about this, and the river is quite low because it's the end of the year, and during fall it normally decreases, and we'll get a lot of rain in the winter and into the spring. And that snow melt that we get in our Sierra parks, that snow melt melts throughout the year and makes this river really cold until almost June.
So yes.
But
and dangerous.
It does,
very, very dangerous.
Definitely. But we used to be able to have water transit. They used to have ferries that came up to about 3 to 5 miles from here, on a boat.
The steamboat that my third great grandfather came up and like got off the boat near Marysville, and I was like what?
How did that happen?
Right.
So, and unfortunately, that also stopped due to hydraulic mining. As the water and the silt came down, it raised those riverbeds and made it so that unfortunately traffic wasn't possible. And unfortunately, that did bring chemicals down as well, really drastically impacting this beautiful landscape that the Nisenan had tended for generations. So I think it's a real opportunity to look at our past and see how we can really remediate and continue to improve our relationship with the land.
Absolutely. I mean, this river knew what to do and where to go, and it always had, regardless of humans. The overflow in the seasons, like you said, the banks that I've read in old historic documents, because I do so much research. I love it. You guys should all love research.
Or talking to your grandparents or anybody who's in your family.
That's totally learn as much as you can. It's so awesome, because once those folks are gone, you can't ask them. And I wish all the things I wish I'd asked my grandpa, but they said that this river used to be uncontainable, and it would just flood up and wipe out all the bridges they tried to build, and all the farms that they tried to have on the side of and I was always like, I thought that was really awesome. But they were finally they dammed it enough along all the places that it makes me kind of sad. It's finally contained, and I'm like, no, let it go, let it flow.
Yeah. And we do have a wild and scenic designation for 39 miles of this river to prevent any future damming. But unfortunately, that doesn't affect the existing damming that's on the river right now. But we talked a little bit about coming into our native landscapes and how we can respect the landscape now that we know, especially with the knowledge of what happened in the past. So how do you feel about the public coming into this river canyon that is clearly so important to the Nisenan?
Well, I know for some types of conservation, it's good to keep people out. Because just to really give the land and the animals there some space, because humans are just so we're everywhere. We have our hands on everything. It's just like, back off, humans, just like, let it be for a minute. But it's a different world than it was before, in the days of the Nisenan people, when that's who was here forever. And we're America. We have this different world that we're all born into, that you are all born into. It's very different from that world. And trying to navigate both of those sometimes is hard, but we need to be with nature. The only way you can understand and learn to care about nature, and if you sit and listen to this tree and get a heart connection, and you're like, my tree, I miss it, and you feel homesick for this river or whatever it is, especially younger people need to be in nature. And I just, if I could have my magic wand and get my wish is that people could come and understand how important it is, that it is alive, that there's a personality, that nature is going to do its thing with or without humanity. And it's our privilege to be part of this. You know, I'm so crazy about sci-fi and my space movies, and I just love those stories. And but they're in the dark, cold vastness of space. And the whole thing in sci-fi is they're always looking for a planet where they can just live. You know, that's their only desire. And here we are on this gorgeous, beautiful place, and people are destroying it. And it's like, you don't know what you got till it's gone, sort of thing. And I don't want us to ever experience that. And especially folks, if you live in cities and you're around cement and stuff all the time, you don't get to feel that. You got to do it for your soul and your heart and your body. It just, like we were talking before, it just
like
does
green
something.
space.
It's really important. And I do believe that when humans are being good to the planet, that nature needs us, because we have thumbs, we can light fires, we can do things that no one else can do. And unfortunately, we do use our thumbs in maybe a destructive way instead of a helpful way to the planet. But, you know, to be helpful, come into these spaces with respect. You know, for me as a Native person, it's an opportunity, especially with, we're talking about all these things finally. When I was young, we didn't talk about the genocide of the Native people. We didn't talk about the gold rush in a negative way at all, because, you know, it really just wasn't safe, honestly. And so now we're having all these conversations, and you know, when you come on the landscape, know that there was somebody there before you that's probably been disappeared, and take a moment to wonder, I wonder what's up with those folks. I hope they're okay type. You know, but that's my magic wand little package. If people came out, you'd sit with the trees, you do your thing, get to know the planet, think about the Native people, and then take that home with you in your heart. And be respectful. Don't leave your trash around.
Yes, definitely. Please pick up your trash.
No glass, no trash.
So we actually have a couple different questions from students, and I wanted to see if we could just spend a couple minutes to connect with some folks. We have some questions for Shelly. The first one is, when did the Nisenan tribe start living there?
So we have always been here. You know, the archaeological data, when they go and dig up graves to date humanity, which, you know, I have feelings about, but the local ones I know about are dated to 13,000 years ago. And it's really interesting that those folks are buried with what they call plains style dogs in their burials with them. I know the animals are really important still to our families, that they're smart. We, in our creation stories, we always learn from the animals. They're the ones that teach us how to live on the land, is by watching them. And that people cared about them so much that they were buried together. 13,000 years, you know, we say we've always been here.
So at least 13,000 years.
At least 13,000 or always, yes.
Yeah.
Until new archaeological or scientific information comes up, that's our best estimate.
Right, yeah.
Well, I don't think any of the students here are older than 13,000 years old. So
it would be special students.
Yes, indeed. So that actually brings us to our next question. Speaking of animals and importance, lots of students here want to know what kind of animals live there. Have you seen anything today?
We've seen a bunch of squirrels today.
They're like so loud.
We mentioned the oak tree. We've been trying to avoid the dropping acorns. They're busy squirreling stuff away for winter. And we did see some birds. I didn't catch which bird.
I saw like 50 crows on the way down. They were just, they're just all doing their crow thing.
I saw a beautiful buck and a doe just along the road. They were high up on the embankment. And it was about a 3-point buck. So he had quite a crown.
Be safe, so,
right? Definitely.
Yeah, but we're missing our grizzly, the grizzly bears. You know, they were all removed from California and relocated and killed.
1927 was the last grizzly bear. And what's the Nisenan word for bear?
Kappa. Kappa. I don't know all my words, but I know a lot. They're usually animals.
Yeah.
But the grizzly, you know, the condor,
We do have some nesting bald eagles. They didn't leave a nest this year, but we'll hope for next year. They've got a sweet spot here with the two forks of the river coming together at a lake. So there's lots of tasty fish for them there.
That's awesome. You know, and then one of the things that we're really prized in the culture, I call them eels, but somebody recently educated me that they're actually called lamprey. And like they were a big deal. I guess they're really delicious. I've never tried one, so I don't know. But I guess there are no freshwater
I don't believe so. Not
lampreys.
Yeah.
They're long.
Yeah.
We call them lamenmai, which is a long salmon,
Cool.
which I think is really funny.
Yeah. This fish, it's longer.
Long. Yeah.
Awesome. We also have a couple questions
But we also
about a couple questions about what the Nisenan people ate. What kind of food would you guys be eating?
Yeah. So, I mean, they ate a lot of things. It's funny because my grandma told me stories about the different things that the old lady, she was old and she talked about the old ladies. They were, you know, sometimes they lived to like 120, 130 years old was not uncommon.
Yeah.
But they ate bugs like worms, all kinds of some kind of worm. Big, they sound like big. Sorry. Whoa.
Doesn't sound appetizing today, but hopefully it was tasty back then.
Right. But yes, the grasshoppers, grandma said they taste like popcorn, which I also haven't tried that.
But I've eaten crickets.
Oh, have you?
But I used to live in Southern California, and so we had the most chapulines from the Mexican crickets. Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, because pests and bugs are pesty, and so if you can find them as a food source, that's really great. But they also would hunt the bees. They would dig a pit around them, whatever ones that live in the ground, and smoke them, and they ate those. And grandma said that when they had the old cars that had the open radiators, like a Model T or a Model A or whatever, and it would drive up to the reservation, the old ladies would go out and pick all the bugs off the radiator and flick their wings off and eat them. And so lots of insects. Of course, you know, there were huge herds of deer and antelope, elk and antelope here, which are also missing from the landscape. And I was just thinking, you know how people rent out goats now, and you can rent them around to clear. Can you imagine? Yes. And so you imagine those herds that they say would take a day to go by, how much land tending those herds must have done. And but you know, all kinds of delicious people, like not delicious people. I'm so sorry. Well, I always call deer people, or I don't mean that their people were delicious, but the deer and the antelope, they didn't really eat any of the scavenger animals weren't eaten.
Yeah. And we have some beautiful biodiversity of plants here as well. I mean, we mentioned the oak tree.
Plants,
we also had the claytonia, which is that almost watercress-like lettuce.
Oh yeah, that's so good.
And that's carpets in the springtime if we get a little rain. And normally the leaves are about this big, and sometimes they'll be, you know, quite large, and they're delicious.
Yeah, and then you know, it was a really negative term, but the Indians here and throughout here and Nevada and down Southern California, they called them digger Indians. And my grandpa said that was a very bad word because the women had these long digging sticks, and I guess they would fire harden them, and because they ate the tubers, they're called, that grow at the bottom of, you know, plants like Indian onions, Indian potatoes, all those kind of things. But I guess they were just so fast with them, they go just get the stuff out of the ground.
Yeah.
So many delicious, and I found a couple that I just go, wow, don't ever eat anything. My aunt's always going, Shelly, you're going to kill yourself, you know, because you can die from accidentally eating the wrong thing.
Especially mushrooms. Please don't harvest the plants and eat them.
See, the mushrooms are tricky. They have one that is good and delicious and one that looks exactly like it. It's like they're tricksters. They're like, let's see how well, like maybe they're the test. Like, let's see how well you know your earth plants. Or it's either good or it will kill you. Absolutely. I don't ever pick them without my cousin around who knows. Yeah, because it's scary.
And we did have some other plants. I know we were talking about food. We did have some other plants that were really important. We talked about the soap root and the munmut.
Yes,
Well,
munmut.
Munmut.
Yes, it's with a U, but actually U is munmut. I've been trying to also say the name of the river. Like it looks like Ubaseo. How do you say it again? Ubaseo? Ubaseo. So with our B's, like you suck them in, it's really strange. And our D's are, they call them imploded. I feel silly doing it. But let me see if I can say it for you. Uba so. It's like a so the word, it's not EYO or YO. It's really strange. And I don't think I haven't been able to get it right yet to where it's comfortable. And I end up just saying it like an American girl and I'm Uba so, you know.
Can you guys spell it for us and then say it one more time so folks at home can try too?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So it's UBA, which is Uba. Oh, that was a good one.
That was good.
Uba. Yeah. So that was pretty good
and
too.
The second word is SEO.
SEO.
And SEO
is a waterway.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it could be a creek or a river. Like there wasn't really that distinction, except they would say Nem. Like they would say Nemso, which is big. Nem is big. So big waterway. Nemso.
Cool.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, we have one last question and a comment. One of the students here just wanted to let you guys know that you guys are cool.
Oh, thanks.
And our last question is, are there still people from the Nisenan tribe present in the local area, and about how many people?
Yeah, there definitely are Nisenan people here. You know, again, I feel like every time I talk about our tribe and our family, like it's kind of sad. And no matter which way I come into it, it ends up kind of with a sad middle. And it's just the way it is. And we are still here, but only about 2% of the Nisenan survived those hard times, or the times of great destruction, as you know, people say. And so within our tribe, which is the Nevada City Rancheria, so we had a reservation up here in Nevada City, and we have, you know, it bounces up and down, but I think right now we're at 144 members. And there are other Nisenan people who aren't necessarily tribal members in our tribe. But I mean, I would say there's probably less than 500 Nisenan in the whole area. I mean, that might be a little conservative, but there's not a whole lot of people left.
Yeah. Well, and as you mentioned, some of them married into other tribes as well, and they may identify as different.
Sure, and you know,
tribes,
for a long time, it was not okay to identify as a Native person. It was you were treated really, really, really poorly. So a lot of people, as you get lighter, you know, they call it white passing or whatever the terms are, you know, as you get lighter, you weren't targeted. So, and then, or if you went to Indian boarding school or you were adopted or something, and you get that broken connection with your family and your history, some people don't know. And, you know, so of course numbers are, I mean, it's all a big guess, but I just know that there aren't a lot of Nisenan around. And when I was younger, that really impacted me. I was just like, well, I didn't understand, like, where is everybody else, you know? And, but it's all about learning. And I think those stories stand to show us how icky people can be to one another, and just ridiculous, just horrible to one another. And some of the stories about the Nisenan and what happened here are some of the worst I've ever seen in my life. Lately I've been doing a lot of research, and I'm just like, oh, I don't want to read anymore. It's so awful. And I think we're getting so much better, but you know, just really, it's all about, if we can use our story about the gold rush and the tribe, is a story of what we don't want to do and what we don't want to be. We want to be good to one another, you know? We should be. And to the trees and the animals and the water and the planet. Like, we need the planet. It's very important.
Definitely. And we just want to thank both you, Shelley, and the Nisenan for
Thank
taking the
you.
time to come out today and talk with
Oh,
us.
here comes
and
the
have
sun.
have this conversation. I think it's really
Yeah.
important. Like you said, it's just a starting point.
Right.
It's
It's a
this is a
starting point.
continuing of a conversation.
Yeah.
And it's really important that we take the time to do that. And I highly recommend that if you're out there listening, that you see whose native land you live on. And if there's anything that you can do to honor that connection that they have to their native landscape. So, but thank you for joining us.
Yay!
All right. Well, we will catch you guys later. Thank you.